call price discovery. It's the price is reflective of the fact that you've got the smartest and greatest and noblest people in the world working on Bitcoin. You've also got the shittiest, worst, morally bankrupt scumbags in the industry as well.
Before we move forward, I'd just like to remind you that we're giving away $100 to a random subscriber at the end of this month. To take part in it, all you have to do is subscribe to our channel, like this video, and leave a comment in the comments section below. Good luck. Now coming back to Max Keiser's interview, he talked about inflation, his latest predictions for Bitcoin, and how the entire financial market is reacting to the recent crash. He talked about exactly when we could expect a bounce back for Bitcoin. He talked about why buying Bitcoin is a better bet than keeping your fiat in the banks. He also said that buying Bitcoin right now would mean that essentially you're getting it at a 95% discount. If you want to hear Max's comments on the crypto market, watch this video till the end, and don't forget to press the like button. Now, let's look at his interview.
Yeah, I think we're basically in the fourth cycle of scammers. So the Raoul Pal and Mike Novogratz and a few others are kind of at the center of this latest wave of bubble and scams that have come into so-called crypto space. And and as Greg has pointed out, the asset class that is Bitcoin is kind of shrugging it off, and it's not really having an impact on Bitcoin at all, really. Like it used to. In days gone by, some of these major scams, like OneCoin, was from a few years ago, and others. They had more of an impact on the price of Bitcoin. What boils my blood is that rejects from Wall Street, like Mike Novogratz, who was kind of a hedge fund reject. He fucked up his hedge fund. He walked away from the industry for a couple of years and saw an opportunity to recreate all the scammy shit he was doing on Wall Street in crypto. Or Raoul Pal is another Wall Street reject. I guess he wasn't given a partnership option. So he kind of went away and crawled into a cave for a while and saw an opportunity come into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is both the greatest and the worst industry in the world. It attracts the worst people in the world. It also attracts the greatest people in the world. And it's this dynamic that we call price discovery. It's, the price is reflective of the fact that you've got the smartest and greatest and noblest people in the world working on Bitcoin. You've also got the shittiest, worst, morally bankrupt scumbags in the industry as well. When you put them all together, you get a current price, which is whatever it is right now. Yeah, well, the guy Don Ho, or is it Do Kwon or Do Kwon? He had been involved in several scams before this one, and so this was just the latest in a series of scams, and it was designed as a scam. It's similar to BitConnect in its design as a scam, and it blew up like a scam. The people who, like again, Mike Novogratz, who didn't do any due diligence, is irresponsible. It goes beyond just being sloppy. I think it's bordering on the criminal that he didn't do a shred of due diligence on this very obvious scam. I mean, Corey, of course, was tweeting about it before it blew up and saying, this thing is built to blow up. It's going to blow up, and it blew up. Same thing now with Celsius. Celsius, the more you dig into it, the more it's an obvious scam, and it's in the process of melting down. That's going to be another huge washout in the crypto space. But all of these cryptos are going to get blown out of the water. They're all technically securities anyway. The SEC is dragging their feet. We can ask ourselves why Gary Gensler is failing to do his job. Is he just another captured regulator out there doing the bidding of his puppet masters? It looks that way. But eventually, Bitcoin is so beautiful that it will push out these crooks, these charlatans, these captured regulators. And, there's no point in trying to sugarcoat it. These guys are recidivist criminal scumbags, and, they deserve to be in prison. The fact that they're not in prison is a shame, really. It shows that the justice system in America is broken down, but I think that's pretty obvious across the spectrum. We see this all the time. Yeah, I would differentiate between Richard Hart and, let's say, Mike Novogratz and Raoul Powell. Richard Hart, when he launched the project he's involved with now, I remember quite clearly. It said on the cover page that this is a scam. This is a Ponzi scheme. I mean, and I was wondering what the point of that is. But he said up front, I guess it's to provide cover at some point,
Sure, that makes sense.
legal cover. But it said, I mean, he disclosed that it wasn't this isn't, I forget the language, but it said this is in fact
Yeah,
a scam. I mean, it says so right on the cover page. So buyer beware. And again, he's coming from, it's a fairly small scale operation compared to, let's say, these two other guys like Novogratz, who's a Wall Street veteran. He's trafficking in billions of dollars. He is should he cannot claim not to know what he's doing. As Corey pointed out, he's claiming that A, he both made money on the scam, and B, he was unaware that it was a scam. He can't have it both ways. But we live in a world like this now, where if you have regulators in your pocket, then there's no law that applies to you. I mean, that's been true on Wall Street for many years. I mean, Alan Greenspan talked about it, talking about how markets have a quote unquote wiggle room. He knows that a lot of shenanigans go on, but he said we need the liquidity.
yeah,
Is how he justified it going back 20 years. But what's happened is that little wiggle room has become the defining characteristic of these markets. There is no true price discovery anymore. It's all wiggle room. It's all fraud. The prices are all out of whack. And who suffers the most? The average person, not the people on Wall Street who just get bailed out every time they make one of these egregious lapses in judgment and commits a felony. Right. Well, on February 26th, effectively, the U.S. Seized foreign assets and defaulted on their U.S. dollar obligations. So similar to 1971, when the U.S. defaulted to Great Britain, when Nixon went on the gold, took us off the gold standard. And this began this 50-year experiment of all fiat money, which was really the first time ever you'd had all economies running on a fiat standard, that nobody had any hard money. So, and then on February 26th was really an echo of that moment, the Nixon shock, really, when the U.S. essentially said that the dollar is completely untrustworthy and that we're going to default and we're going to seize reserves of foreign countries whenever we want to. And I just don't think that, Greg, we've talked about convexity before and the central banks. And as a result of the 2008 bailout, they loaded up themselves with a lot of these debts. And, if Enron, I'm sorry, if long-term capital management was leveraged at 100 to 1, the Federal Reserve Bank conservatively is leveraged at 50 to 1, if not closer to 80 to 1 right now. So if they try to take rates anywhere higher, you're going to have massive default at the central bank. The central bank is going to need a bailout. So in 2008, Federal Reserve bailed out Wall Street. They swapped all their bad debts for fresh treasury bills, and they put all that bad debt on the books of the Fed. Now all that bad debt is worth 0 cents on the dollar, and nobody wants to buy U.S. Debt anymore. The U.S. Treasury bond is being vomited from the reserves of countries all over the world. Nobody wants to buy U.S. debt. It's no good. It'd be stupid to buy U.S. debt. China's getting rid of their debt. Russia's gotten rid of all their debt. Japan is a huge basket case. Japan is actually the linchpin that holds together this whole global Ponzi scheme, because they always had the lowest rates, and you could always do that carry trade of borrowing in Japan and putting your money into some other currency and making a positive spread and then leveraging it up 20 times, and you've got this great carry trade. But that looks like that's also blowing up. So, I mean, I understand yield curve management. I understand that they can try to bring rates to a higher level, and I can understand, but that presumes that the game has another chapter to it. I don't think there is another chapter to it. I think the Fed goes bankrupt. I think the US goes bankrupt. The synthetic credit default swap, or the synthetic CDS, as you've just described it's the current price of Bitcoin is roughly 95% discount to the imputed or implied value of the synthetic CDS, as Greg has outlined it. Now that's a huge discount. So, why, I don't, what you're putting forward there is such to me, if I was working a desk on Wall Street, I would be able to sell that all day long. I don't understand. I mean, in 1980s, I was selling quote unquote portfolio insurance and sold a lot of it. Of course, that led to the 1987 crash, but that's another story. But in other words, the story is you've got $1 million or $10 million stock portfolio. We can wrap that for 2% a year with derivatives, and you've got a maximum 2% downside on your portfolio, and you've got all your upside. Right. Well, because probably in part because the hedge fund people that are in crypto, like, not to pick on Novogratz too much, but nevertheless, he is the highest profile ex hedge fund guy in the crypto space. He lives for gamma, right? He never puts this pitch forward because it's so easy to make money shilling shitcoins. You see, if there was some law that applied, some serious enforcement of the current law, they don't need any new laws. All that Gary Gensler has to do is enforce the current laws. And, Novogratz would be forced to actually start working for a living and not just shilling crap. And he'd have to look at this trade as Greg has outlined it, and put the power of his fund and his colleagues focused on this. That's another benefit. I think that's another reason why Gary Gensler is completely a captured and unreliable regulator, because he realizes that if he took away the punch bowl of having these guys print money in the shitty way that's completely illegal, they might focus on Bitcoin more, and that would, hurt his paymasters down there on Wall Street. It's such an obvious trade, Greg. I mean, it's not. The credit default swap is, one of the things that make the world go round. I mean, that's one of the big bedrocks.
It's the only unmanipulated market there is left in the world, Max, in my opinion.
Okay. Every trading desk in the world sits on top of CDS products to manage the stack.